All right, well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this Thursday, April 1st meeting of the SACOG Land Use and Natural Resources Committee. Would the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
I will, thank you. Just a couple of housekeeping notes right before I do that. As you just heard, the meeting's being recorded for live streaming on, it is available to members of the public through our Zoom links, and members of the committee who are participating via telephone, if you'd like to make a comment, please press *9. And we would ask our committee members, if you're not speaking, if you could mute your device just so we don't get feedback. Let's see, for roll call, Director Baines.
Present.
Houlihan. I see Director Houlihan is here. I'll note her present for the record. Director Clark-Kretz.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
Gore. I'll note for the record that Chair Gore is here. Thank you. Harris.
Here.
New.
Here.
West.
Here.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Here.
Thank you. And Chair Gallardo is on the line, but she is not chairing the meeting. So I'll note her present for the record. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I got very poor service, but I will try to be here.
All right. Would you like me to carry forward, Madam Chair?
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you do me a favor and mute your mics, and I'll just lead it and we can take everybody's word for it. It gets very confusing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this time, do we have any public communications for an item not on the agenda?
There's no public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to the action items. First item, please.
Item number 1 is the minutes of the March 4th, 2021 committee meeting, and staff is recommending approval of the minutes as submitted.
Move to approve. Baines.
I'll second that. Gore.
Okay, I heard the second by Gore. Who was the motion made by?
Carm Baines.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion second. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines.
Aye.
Houlihan.
Aye.
Clark-Kretz.
Aye.
Frost.
Aye.
Gore.
Aye.
Harris.
Yes.
Thank you. New.
Here. Aye.
West.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kennedy.
Aye.
And Chair Gallardo.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Next item, please.
Well, can you see me?
Yes,
Any
we
issues?
see.
Okay, I was having issues technically earlier. This is item number 2 regarding the amendment to the Mather Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan Memorandum of Understanding. I'm Greg Chu, serve as your airport planning staff. And a number of issues have on this item have come before the board in the last year or so. This is an administrative item. Normally, as SACOG serves as the Airport Land Use Commission, and when an airport operator seeks to update the airport land use compatibility plan for a particular airport, normally the airport operator pays SACOG to do that, and that's exactly what's going on. Sacramento County is the operator for Mather Airport. They paid us with through an MOU to update the Mather plan. That will be coming to the full board next month. But the MOU expires at the end of May, and the county was seeking for extending the MOU just so that there was some time to implement this if the plan gets adopted, just to make sure that there's a smooth transition. So the proposal here is to extend the MOU with Sacramento County for another year through June of 2022. And also the county would pay up to another $50,000 of SACOG time and consultant time, SACOG's consultants, to help them on any transition issues. So with that, if the extension is approved, then also it would allow SACOG staff to sign an extension and amendment with the consultant for their services. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
New moves for approval.
All right.
Okay.
Director New makes a motion to approve. The chair will second. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this?
There's no public comment.
Okay, then please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines,
Aye.
Houlihan,
Aye.
Clark Kretz,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Director- thank you. That's okay. Thank you. Gore,
Aye.
Harris,
Aye.
New,
Aye.
West,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kennedy,
Aye.
and Chair Gallardo.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 3.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hold on for a second. All right, just confirming that everybody can see that. All right, let me adjust this. All right, Renee DeVere-Oki, I am part of your planning staff here at SACOG. So this is item number 3, I believe. So air quality conformity update and PM10 budgets. So this was an information item earlier today at the Transportation Committee and is an action item here. So your action will be to support the use of updated vehicle emission budgets in the SAC Metro Air District's maintenance plan for demonstration of the PM10 public health standard through 2033. To help you understand this action, I will do a little bit of table setting on the plan the Air District is developing, what is our role, and what exactly these budgets are. So big picture, Environmental Protection Agency sets thresholds or science-based public health standards, which require our state and local air agencies to develop plans and take steps to improve air quality locally to reduce these health impacts. These are part of Clean Air Act responsibilities. So EPA does this for a variety of what we call criteria pollutants, which are listed on your screen there. So ozone, particulate matter, carbon monoxide. And then on this map here, each of these highlighted, dashed, or outlined geographies has a designation that goes along with it, such as non-attainment or maintenance. And so this attribute actually helps determine the type of air quality plan or demonstration that the local air agency must develop. You'll notice that CO is actually, or carbon monoxide is not there because we are in attainment, but you will see that we have ozone and 2 geographies for PM 2.5. Our air agencies are pretty busy. We have 5 air districts and 6 counties. So lots of these overlap. But the criteria pollutant that we're discussing here today is PM10, or particle pollution. And the geography is actually Sacramento County specific. So a little bit of background, particulate matter is as a form of air pollution that comes from sources such as construction sites, paved roads, fields, smokestacks, and fire. It also forms up in the atmosphere as a result of complex chemical reactions with sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. And so these come from power plants and think our tailpipes or automobiles. Particulate matter comes in various sizes. There are 2 that are federally regulated, PM10 and PM 2.5. The measure is micrometers, which is this small scientific reading of what those are. We care about this because high levels of exposure can have health impacts, such as decreased heart and lung function. So you'll notice that it's very specific for this geography just to the Sacramento County, and that's actually kind of a relic of early 1990s when it was classified that way. PM 2.5 is a more recent designation from EPA happening in about 2009. And that's why it's more of a broad-based geography around the region. So a little bit more detail on the plan. So back in 2012, the Sac Metro Air District acted on an implementation maintenance plan and what they call a redesignation request, which demonstrated that the county could meet the public health standard for PM10 for a 10-year period. EPA action was in 2013. So the period of demonstration was 2013 to 2033. And obviously we're now getting close to 2023. So they are doing another 10-year demonstration period, which will take us to that 2033 mark. The document is called a second maintenance plan. And so when we reach 2033, it's actually a good news story. It means we are then become an attainment area for PM10. And so because you have to demonstrate meeting the standard for 20 years. So part of the work that the Air District does as part of the second maintenance plan is they have to look at all sources of PM10 and document how they collectively do not exceed the health standards. So the Air District works with the California Air Resource Board, or CARB, to develop emission calculation methodologies for off-road mobile sources, area-wide sources, and stationary sources. And then for the on-road mobile sources, the Air District works with us here at SACOG and then CARB to come up with what these vehicle emission budgets are. So budget development doesn't happen frequently. And the last time we did this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm going to walk you through that on the next slide. So process-wise, where do these vehicle emissions come from? So CARB uses SACOG vehicle data. The data that they use came from our 2020 MTP-SES, which we adopted back in November of 2019. And then CARB uses one of their emission models to help come up with the numbers. And so once this is done, the numbers are shared with us. And so the Sac Metro Air District staff is looking to see how it fits with all those other sources that they're looking at collectively on the last slide. And then we are looking to see how it's going to work with our MTP, SES, and our MTIP development processes. And so part of the formal action that goes along with these budgets is we take them to our regional planning partnership, which is our designated interagency consultation body for technical air quality matters. We have folks from the air districts, Caltrans, our federal partners, EPA is there to discuss those. And so that happened last week. And so the budgets have obviously moved forward. And so just a little bit, when I say our process here at SACOG, the term that we always use is conformity. And for those of you that are new, you may have remember it being referenced with our MTIP adoption, but quickly. So a conformity demonstration is an analysis that checks anticipated transportation emissions at various points in our MTP-SES life cycle. And then the finding of conformity means that we have actually demonstrated that changes to the proposed transportation network don't impede the ability of our region to achieve public health standards. So vehicle budgets we are developing here will be used in future demonstrations. And the years that we are developing them for are 24, 27, and 33. So this is in attachment A. It's a very detailed slide. So I'm going to skip on to the next slide. I just have this here for reference. So a lot goes into developing the budget. There's different components, but the bottom line number is what we look for on this one. As you'll notice, PM10 kind of goes up over time and NOx goes down over time. NOx goes down because vehicle tailpipe emissions become cleaner. And then PM10 goes up just as a result of what's happening kind of on the ground with economic development and growth over time. But this still allows us to get to the 10-year increments that we're trying to do. So next steps, after we take action at the board, the Sac Metro Air District will fold these numbers into their plan and submit that for public review, and they will have an adoption process. Once their board acts on it, it will be submitted to CARB for action, and then finally it will go to the EPA for action. All of this takes quite a bit of time. We'd anticipate these budgets being used in our future MTP-SES conformity, which would take place in 2024 or late 2023. And so that is a high-level overview of kind of conformity and the budget process, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also have 2 members of the Air District available to answer any questions you have, Janice Len Snyder and David Yang.
Are there any questions of the board? Okay, hearing none. Is that, Renee, is that that's not the entirety of your presentation?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay, great. All right. We like brevity. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this, Madam Clerk?
No public comment.
No public comment. This is an action item. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval and then just say thank you to Renee for making something that seems really complicated, simple. This is really complicated when I was reading through it. You did a very good job of simplifying it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
The chair will second and agree. So thank you very much, Renee. Appreciate the work. We have the motion by Director Gore, second by the Vice Chair. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Baines,
Aye.
Houlihan,
Aye.
Clark Kretz,
Aye.
Frost,
Aye.
Gore, I see Chair Gore nodding her head, so I will note her yes for the record. Thank you. Harris,
Yes.
New,
Yes.
West,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kennedy,
Aye.
and Chair Gallardo.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Information items, number 4.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Garrett Bowdros with SACOG staff. It's my pleasure to present to you for information, the staff recommendation SACOG 2021 funding round. For context, your colleagues on the Transportation Committee this morning did recommend this item moving forward, so you all see it in 2 weeks at the full board meeting for action. Before we go into the details of the staff recommendation, just a step back for background and context. The SACOG funding round, of course, is an important source of transportation funding in the region. It funds projects in what we call the 4-county region, so projects within Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba counties. Transportation projects in Placer and El Dorado counties have separate funding streams and funding programs. And really, the staff recommendation for you today is the culmination of several years worth of work. You may recall that in 2020, SACOG staff and your public works staff engaged quite heavily in really good communication and stakeholder feedback. This committee and the board also spent multiple months deliberating the approach to the SACOG funding round, and ultimately this culminated in fall of last year in what we call the funding round framework, which set the stage, the objectives, the criteria, and the programs for this 2020 funding round. And that framework that you as the board adopted last year made some very notable changes to how we approach our funding rounds. It made some new programs, which we'll talk about a bit later, maintenance and modernization and transformative, for example. And a central theme was really how to have certainty and predictability in the funding round, which the board reaffirmed as competitive nature. So additional improvements or additions to the framework include things such as pre-application consultations, where SACOG met with interested project sponsors before applications were due, project sponsors including their own priority rankings as part of the application material, the opportunity for larger awards and for awards that spanned multiple cycles. Equally important for the board was continuing the steps of several prior rounds of application streamlining, program simplification and consolidation, and then broader representation, the evaluation and interview stage, and continued use of data. The last part of that framework that you adopted in the last year set the programs or the individual programs for the funding that was made available. There were 4 of them. The 2 largest are regional and community design. Those are the subject of this staff item today. And we're taking them together. I do want to thank Greg Chu, you just heard from a bit earlier. He's the head of our community design program. It's the 9th cycle. Greg's been the head of every cycle. So thanks for him and his team for the recommendations from that. And we're pairing them with the recommendations from the regional program to get this unified recommendation for your consideration and for action at the board. A couple top level points about the staff recommendation that the Transportation Committee acted on this morning. The first part pertains to the budget. There was this one-time influx of federal transportation stimulus dollars. The Transportation Committee moved to include those stimulus dollars in the funding round budget. The result of that means that there is now $198 million of available funding. Originally thought it might be more like 180, but with this one-time federal transportation stimulus, that gets it up to nearly $200 million. And then the second part of our colleagues' action this morning was recommending to the board the awards within that 198 million of available funding. Yeah. In terms of the process that led us to our staff recommendation, we received over 110 applications requesting over $460 million. So a very heavily oversubscribed program, and 110 applications is the most we've ever received. It was clear there was a lot of thought and great input that went into those applications. So we thank every sponsor for that. We also spend a considerable amount of time in convening subject matter experts in what we call working groups. That framework I spoke to earlier set the evaluation criteria for these working groups. And so we convened 5 separate working groups to look at these over 100 applications from different facets of evaluation criteria. For example, there are working groups looking at performance outcomes, things such as safety or congestion relief or multimodal travel. There's other working groups that were looking at a project from a deliverability or engineering standpoint. Some of, they each had different criteria, but some of the common characteristics is they both used the material in the application that was quantitative and qualitative to have a holistic review or assessment of the projects. Those various working groups served as the input, the recommendation that compiled to what we see as the staff recommendation today. So in addition to thanking the sponsors for the massive amount of effort in the applications, we want to pass along our appreciation to these volunteer working groups. They consisted of both SACOG and outside agency experts. Over 40 people were involved with the working group, which was very much needed given that we had over 100 applications to get through. So in short, if the board does decide to act on the staff recommendation in 2 weeks, this would allow then our executive director to negotiate and execute any memorandum of understanding, and then importantly, allow our delivery team to start working with these project sponsors to get them moving forward. We very much understand, in a heavily oversubscribed program, right? There's many projects with high merit. We're not part of the staff recommendation, but for context, and that this is the first time in this new framework, just sort of some top level stats of how that played out. Within the maintenance and modernization category, 19 of the 20 top priority projects put forward by project sponsors are recommended for funding. The transformative category, which is the other large category within these programs, likewise was very competitive. We're recommending 10 of the top 13 of those projects to move forward for funding. So we very much recognize and understand, not every project was recommended for funding. The attachment C really lists out the assessments from the working groups that led to the staff recommendation, but we did want to call attention to in a heavily oversubscribed round. There are very many important projects that are also not part of the staff recommendation. So again, the tagline, your colleagues this morning did unanimously recommend this item to move forward. We wanted to go to all 3 committees for the opportunity to answer any questions you have, and then you'll be seeing this as a full board in 2 weeks. Myself, my colleague Matt Carpenter, and my colleague Greg Chu are here and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Garrett. Are there any questions of staff at this time? Okay. Mr. Corliss, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I just say for obviously the board members who went through a lot of the discussion last year around the funding round and the process. As you all know, we took a lot of that to heart. Your staff here took a lot of that to heart, and I think as Garrett said through his presentation, I think we see an improved process. I think we see a result here that I know we can't fund every project, as Garrett said, but there were a lot of improvements around pre-consultation and the project sponsor ranking that I think have really borne out, I think develop a better outcome at the end of the day. So it's frankly actually a little bit more work to do it this way, but I actually think we get a better.
Thank you. I see Director Frost has her hand up.
Thank you, Director Kennedy. I just wanted to thank the SACOG staff for all the consulting and the work that you did in my district. I think it was really good for maybe for SACOG to understand my district, but even more important, it was really helpful what you did to help my constituents understand what the money wants to see so that they can be thinking about that as they're doing their community development. It's good things are happening and more money is coming to that corridor even as we speak. In the last couple of days, I'm getting calls with possible opportunities that are coming. So that will just only add to what you've done there. So you did the heavy lifting, especially in Orangeville. And I just want you to know that I know I was one of the biggest voices last year during all that. And I really did feel like you are paying attention, and I appreciate that. So I just wanted to express my gratitude for all that you all did. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, there being none, I will echo my colleague, Director Frost, and thanking staff that it was hard to get to the point where we made a decision, but once we got there, you all did a fantastic job. And I do think we have a better process now than we have since I've been on the board. And so appreciate your work on that. Information item number 5, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Victoria Cacciatore, the Regional Active Transportation Program Manager. And what that means is that I'm the person who helps manage the Active Transportation Program funding source, which is state and federal funds that were created by or merged in state law in 2013 to increase biking and walking throughout California. This funding program is co-implemented by the California Transportation Commission and Caltrans, and MPOs like SACOG get a portion of that funding to competitively distribute to aid in implementing our MTP SES. That means that this is one of the programs where SACOG gets to work with El Dorado County Transportation Commission and Placer County Transportation Planning Agency to distribute funds. Similar to the last item, the Transportation Committee made a recommendation to the board to approve the funding recommendation as it's presented in the revised attachment that you received yesterday afternoon. So the revised attachment A, but I would still be open and very happy to address any questions you have. To recap what this, oh yes. Sorry.
No, I think you're good.
Okay. To recap what we changed from the state competitive program to help customize this to help us implement the MTP SES, we added a scoring criterion about discussing how these active transportation projects and programs help support reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And what that typically means is that we're looking at how the infrastructure investments or programmatic investments will complement planned land use or upcoming developments in an area or anticipated mode shifts that come in as the population changes in our area. We also added a criterion for how the projects can support local and regional economic strategies. For some instances, that means increasing access to a local business district. And in other areas, it might be more about increasing access to schools or other training institutions. And lastly, we had a regionally identified goal of investing a minimum of 35% in projects with a benefit to disadvantaged communities. And we were able to exceed that goal that we had set last year with the attached funding recommendation that has 55% of the funding going towards projects that could demonstrate a meaningful benefit to disadvantaged community residents. So as you saw with the attachment, there are 7 projects recommended for funding. 6 of them are recommended for full funding, as in the full request that they submitted to SACOG, though many of those were scaled down from much larger project asks that were submitted to the state competition. And there's also 1 partial funding recommendation that we will be working with City of Winters staff on. Yolo County had been the agency that was next in line to receive those funds, but they stepped back to allow the next project on the list on which they are a partner. So the Winters SR 128 project to advance. And this is part of the City of Winters ongoing partnership with Yolo County to increase access for residents of El Rio Villa to connect into City of Winters for needed amenities, schools, jobs, and just for, for fun too, I would suppose. So that is the gist of the item, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
I have one, Director Kennedy.
Director Gore.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Thank you. So which of the projects met that underserved criterion, or however we call that? Which of those are those projects? And then did they get additional points, or was it just sort of recognition? Tell us how you got to that, recognizing what they were, and did they get extra points in the process? I'm curious.
Thank you for that question. And the way it is determined is that we have a discussion in the application where project sponsors talk about how the project is supported by residents of a disadvantaged community, how it meets their transportation needs or other express needs that they have shared that have been uncovered through analysis and outreach by the local agency. And so that is scored 0 to 10 points. And what we count as a meaningful benefit is anything that scores in the highest bracket. So if you're looking at a high, medium, low, anything that's 8 points or above. They did not get extra points added into their score. That said, I'd say that there is often an overlap between how people discuss the potential of a project to increase biking and walking, the potential of a project to increase safety, and the potential of a project to support economic prosperity. That very much relates to the access that is being provided to residents that very often do not have safe access or do not have the ability to get there any other way other than biking or walking. So it's not factored into the ranking score. It is something that we use to reflect that we are meeting the state requirements of 25% investment and then also meeting our regional goal of 35% investment.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And then which projects are those? I'm just curious.
So if you're looking at the attachment on item A, anything that has the asterisk by it meets that. So Placerville Drive bicycle and pedestrian facilities, Yuba County's Garden Avenue Safe Routes to School project, and West Sacramento's Sycamore Trail Phase 3, and the City of Winters, the state Route 128, I-505 overcrossing bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So those are the 4 different projects in our recommendation that contributed towards our region meeting that goal.
Thank you, appreciate that. I just didn't see that. Well, I saw the asterisks, I just didn't read them all. So I appreciate that. And that, I mean, that's really good to see.
Okay, any other questions? Yes. Director Clark-Kretz.
Thank you. Victoria, you said the project sponsors start out that process, and I'm probably going to ask a very dumb question, but what does that mean, project sponsors? Is that the jurisdictions, or to whom are you referring to?
Yes, that's a good question, and reminding me that I'm neck deep in this. By project sponsor, I mean the person who's going to build that bike lane, build that trail, build that sidewalk. So yes, the city or the county, we have one instance of a park district. And then also in the list, you would see Sacramento Regional Transit District. So anybody who's listed as the person who is accountable for making the project happen as it's outlined in the application.
Any other questions? And that was not a dumb question at all, by the way. Okay, I see none. Well, thank you very much. And Victoria, I have to say, thank you for your good work, but also that you still have my favorite name of all of the SACOG staff. All right.
Hey, Chair Kennedy, can I
Yes, Mr. Corliss.
just chime in here a little bit, and Director Gore, I appreciate your question on these communities. I want to just put a pin in this, because as we go forward, a lot of our equity work and our REI working group, one way to think about equity when we get to something like the active transportation grants is a geographic kind of boundary, if you will. It's we have mapped on a map disadvantaged communities. We have criteria for them. And they are scattered all around the region. They are throughout the 6 counties. Another way which you're going to hear about a little bit more, and I actually think it relates a bit, Director Frost, to what you were saying about Orangevale and the engagement of Orangevale, right? And how perhaps that has really helped actually develop a very competitive project. We would like to do that more in a lot of our lower income communities and communities of color. We'd like to find some resources. We won't solve everything, but I think Victoria this morning had mentioned, or maybe in the Trails meeting, what we're calling the Engage, Empower, Implement program. The board put aside $3 million last year to try to do a bit more bottom-up planning, to try to give a bit more support to communities that frankly don't have sometimes the resources to be able to design and get to the stage where they are competitive in their projects. So stay tuned on this. Again, disadvantaged, sort of we can do this and give you this kind of overlay, if you will, that's kind of geographic, but there's other ways to think about this, which your staff is working really hard on, and you're going to hear more about in the months ahead. If that makes sense, I hope it does.
Thank you, Mr. Corliss. Yes, I see Director Frost has her hand up.
Thank you. I was wondering if I do have one property owner on that corridor who's now planning on putting in some electric charging stations next to the car wash that he's going to build. Are there grant opportunities for something like that? And who would I talk to regarding that?
Director Frost, why don't we follow up on this particular item, because we have a partnership that we don't really trumpet probably as much as we should, but with SMUD and the Air District. And it's so interesting that you bring this up, because on the charging station thing, there's a number of agencies that actually own a little piece of this. I think in this particular circumstance, we might be able to retail some help for your property owner. But I'd also say that in general, with a lot of this talk of infrastructure at the national level, we need to be ready to take advantage of, I think, some funding that might be coming for electrification. Director Baines and I have had some discussions on clean fuel trucks in Sutter County and ways in which we can position the region a little bit. So there are definitely opportunities. There are grants out there. And I think so why don't we give you a bit of a retailed follow-up?
Sounds good. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we will move on to item number 6, which is committee member reports. Anybody? All right, you're all very quiet and cooperative. The final item is item number 7, which is a receive and file. And Mr. Corliss, you have something?
Well, Chair Ken, I would just, I wanted to pause a little bit on the committee reports, and Clint, please weigh in here. I think this was a little bit of an attempt just to hold on this for a second, to really have to allow some time for directors to share, especially around the housing work this year. So housing element updates, some of the LEAP and the efforts that you're all undertaking to try to meet our RENA numbers, some success stories, some challenges, some failures. So I just wanted to provide that friendly reminder. Clint, is that accurate? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it's an opportunity to share. I know a lot of you are hearing presentations leading to housing element adoption. So if as you're facing issues or hearing those presentations, I know it's been valuable in the past to share that information, because I think others are also experiencing the same thing at the same time. So that's really what it was for. And then I just wanted to really quickly mention, you heard from Garrett and Victoria today about 2 of our major funding programs and recommendations that'll be going to the board this month. Those were both acted on by transportation. In June, this committee is acting on a funding program, our REAP funds, which is the funding that goes to housing planning. So that is under the jurisdiction of Lunar. It was wrapped into our larger community design process or program this time around. But that's about $1.8 million in awards that this committee will be acting on in June. So I just wanted to plug that just to keep it on your radar as well. But yes, exactly as James described, this opportunity, these board report outs or member report outs are just a chance to share information with your colleagues.
Director Gore.
Thank you. So actually on that note, I thought I would share something that our county has done. We had our housing update at our Tuesday board meeting, because we've been talking about ADUs and using them as a vehicle to help address some of the housing needs, especially for lower income uses. We are going to be getting out probably in the next week or so blueprints for ADUs. And making this available at no cost to residents in unincorporated Placer County. I think we might be working with one local jurisdiction and providing those blueprints as well at probably a minimal cost. But we have had over 100 people in the last year reach out in an interest to pull a building permit for an ADU, and I think we actually have 70 some odd completed permits for ADUs. So I want to share that. That might be an option or an opportunity or a thought for another jurisdiction as you're using that as a tool to address some of the housing needs in our communities. And more to come on that, but it's really nice that we'll actually be able to provide those blueprints that are expensive and time consuming. And if somebody can sort of plug and play, so to speak, it may make it a lot easier for folks.
Great. Any others? Director Gore, can I ask you, could you send me the staff contact at Placer County of who's working on that project? I'd like our staff to speak with them.
Sure, happy to.
Great, thank you. Any others? All right, as I said, we have a receive and file, item number 7. So if there's nothing else, if there's no other board members that have anything they'd like to bring up, then we're adjourned. Thank you for your time and enjoy your time in Mexico, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you doing that.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Nice weekend.